China is fascinating for me on this because China doesn't seem to want a global hegemony. Like, meaning their way of looking at the world doesn't seem, I know Mearsheimer makes this argument that China is just another hegemon in the making. I don't get that sense from them. And yet they may be forced into that position just to compete with the US and what the US is trying to do from a global plan standpoint. I know it's fascinating. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's screwed up, but it is fascinating. Before I let you go, I have to hit Syria. You put out on your page, and I so disagree with you on this, which is why I want to talk to you about it, that the US is effectively allowing these strikes against Syria, meaning Israel, because the United States wants to give Jelani this appearance of pushing back against Israel. I have seen no evidence of Jelani pushing back against Israel at all, to any degree. I mean, he gave a muddled statement that can be interpreted if you look deeply and hard enough that, hey man, if you keep hitting us, we might be forced to respond. Which is like, okay, dude, they've destroyed all of your air defense. They bombed the hell out of you at the point where you've overthrown that government. They helped you overthrow that government, no less. They are now taking more and more territory, telling you that you cannot come to the southern part of your capital in your own country, supposedly, ostensibly. And the best that you can do is give a speech where you mutely, like in a tiny sense, criticize, even though everything that he's putting out is effectively, hey man, I just want to be butts. That doesn't seem like that's giving him space to push back against Israel. It seems like he just got attacked and Israel's pushing through a plan of creating greater Israel. Give me your take on it, though. Maybe I'm getting something wrong and I don't want to mischaracterize you.
Well, you have to think about who is the audience and which media are you looking at and examining, because in the actual Middle East, there are entire groups of people who live basically in a parallel universe where President Bashar al-Assad was an Israeli-American puppet, and Jabhat al-Nusra and the 10 other aliases that it has gone by over the last 10 plus years. They're the heroes, and Iran is secretly infiltrated by Israel, and that was all staged. And you have to understand that the media there in the Middle East, to those audiences, we don't see that as Westerners. You have to go out of your way to go.
This is what they're pumping out into their media.
Yes, these people are in a parallel. When I say they're in a parallel universe, for all intents and purposes, they might as well be in a parallel universe. Physically separated from us. They are not in the real world with us. So the people who were cheering on US, Israeli, Turkish, Persian Gulf state-backed terrorists, they thought that these terrorists were fighting against the US and Israel and Bashar al-Assad, who was a puppet, who was just pretending to be if you follow this long enough, you will see those reports. You will see people translating them and explaining them on Telegram. We live in a really great time for doing analysis, because you have entire Telegram channels now that all they do is translate, or at least part of what they do is they translate media stories from that region. And they have Shia and Sunni Muslims are not natural enemies. They coexist. In Syria, before all this happened, under President Bashar al-Assad, they did coexist. Most of the Syrian Arab army, despite the president being an Alawite, were Sunni Muslims. But the US, and before that, the British Empire, deliberately divided all of these ethnic groups, all of these religious groups into different factions, and they created their own parallel. Each one gets their own parallel universe and their own strategy of tension, where they get everybody all wound up emotionally, and they get them fighting in one direction or another. And I've warned people that Hamas is part of this. They are branched off of the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood is, for all intents and purposes, the political wing of Al-Qaeda, has been serving U.S. and before that, the British Empire's interests for generations now. The whole Arab Spring was this psychological operation where people during the Arab Spring actually thought they were rising up against the U.S., and Israel. They actually thought that when it was the U.S. who planned everything years in advance, mobilized all of these groups, all of these leaders of these protests and the militants. They were all prepared by the U.S. years in advance. And I showed this mountain of evidence to people. There were the leaders were literally in the United States years before this, like 2007, 2008. With the executives of Google and Facebook, and it was called Twitter back then. Hillary Clinton, when she was Secretary of State, did like a Skype call to these, protest leaders. They equipped them, they funded them, they instructed them, and they sent them back to their respective nations in the Arab world to overthrow them come 2011. That's what actually happened, but a lot of people think that was a legitimate uprising against the U.S. and Israel, that somehow the U.S. just hijacked and turned around into these wars, where these were all prepared well in advance. All of the evidence is there. But because these people live in a parallel universe, because of their emotional investment into what is going on there, and also the media that they consume, which is deliberately deceiving them, from their point of view, up is down, left is right. The U.S.-backed Al-Qaeda are actually freedom fighters fighting against U.S. imperialism and against Israel, even though Israel's giving them ambulance rides and harboring them along the Israeli border all throughout the 2011 to 2024 war to topple the Syrian government. So to Western audiences, we hear these milquetoast comments from Jolani. But in the region, he is saying we are the only ones actually fighting back against Israel, and he needs.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
that is.
Yes, and people believe it, And why does he have to do this? And why are they doing this now? Because the region just watched Iran pummel Israel for 12 days straight with ballistic missiles, and it's very hard, even with these parallel universes that these people live in and control over the media. Everybody saw that. Some of them physically saw the missiles, going over to Israel. And so you need to do something to top off at least the illusion of al-Jolani and HTS's credibility. So they have this conflict. And if anyone thinks this sounds far-fetched, what was the war on terror, the U.S. global war on terror? The U.S. was behind ISIS and Al-Qaeda all along, and yet they fought a 20-plus year war against ISIS and Al-Qaeda. They're still fighting ISIS and Al-Qaeda. So this is just the same old game. This is the latest iteration of it.
That's mind-blowing. Because you must understand, all of the data that I see coming out of Syria is Jolani begging Israel to be buds. Hey, man, let's be buds. Let's just be friends. Why we got to fight? Hey, you can blow up some of the armaments. Hey, you can take part of Syria. We can still be buds. That's what you see coming out of Israel, Syria. And you think to yourself, okay, there are 100 different groups that's part of HTS. Many of these groups hate Israel's guts. And you get this kind of weird scenario where they're like, we're going to go and kill the Druze because the Druze are working with Israelis. And it's like, dude, your main guy.
You're working with Israel. You've been working with Israel all along. But they don't see it. It's just like when I was in the Marines. At first, I didn't see it. I was completely brainwashed. And then I think just by luck and a lucky series of events, I woke up to it. And I'm sure that there's people in the region who are waking up to it, but so many more people. And just like with the US military today, there's still plenty of eager, brainwashed people who join it and completely believe in the illusion of all of it. And so the US military is not the only game that they play like this. They also do this with all of these proxies that they control around the world. They do the same thing here. In neighboring Myanmar, you have these, all these ethnic groups that have been fighting each other since the British Empire colonized Myanmar when it was called Burma. And they're still killing each other over the illusion of division that the British Empire created, that the US and the British still to this day invest into. And these people think they're fighting for their country while they're physically burning it to the ground every single day. It's like, how do you do that? Well, people are being driven by ideology and emotions, not by logic, reason, and facts.
How should we think of the Druze thing?
Yeah.
I mean, you look at it and you think to yourself, okay, this is weird. Like you have a community that is in Israel that seems to support Israel, that is the ethnic minority in Syria that is being mercilessly killed, remorselessly just murdered. I can show videos of people's heads being severed. I can show videos of people being strung up, like on bridges and whatnot. I mean, the stuff that's coming out there is astonishing. Like they're just chopping off heads. And Israel takes it and says, okay, well, we don't want that to happen. And so we're going to do airstrikes to warn Jelani not to keep doing that. Jelani pulls his forces back from the south. But then you get others who are there saying, look, we're not part of the force at all. So we can stay here and just keep killing the Druze. You get seemingly hundreds of thousands of randos who have went to the area, they went to Sudaya, I believe, in order to murder the minority population. I had Laith on the show. Laith made the point of saying the entire point of Jelani creating this caliphate was to destroy any group in Syria that may create a resurgence in Syria. But there are many elements of the Druze that actually back the Israelis. It's just very strange. Like it's a very strange mix of what's taking place on the ground that I can't wrap my head around.
Well, you could be certain that not every single Druze, that they're not supporting Israel. Not all of them are supporting Israel. But if you create this life and death situation, you get the circling the wagon effect, and they will cling to anyone that offers them stability, peace, and safety. And if that's Israel, or if it's the United States for the Kurds for so many years, then you get this extremely loyal, consolidated force in the region. You neutralize it as a potential force that will rise up. So it's exactly the same thing as if you just killed them all. Now you've consolidated them, and now you can use them. And I have warned people forever that the whole conflict against Syria wasn't just to topple it and put a client regime into power. It was to turn it into a springboard where they can take these armed militant groups and then go out in every direction, attack and undermine whatever is left of Iran's network of allies in the region, and perhaps attack Iran itself. A lot of these ethnic groups have counterparts inside of Iran that they will work with, just like what they've been doing with the Kurds. So the U.S. and Israel have been working with different Kurdish groups. And then, of course, if you follow this all along, there's Kurdish groups that end up fighting each other. And this is what happens when you play divide and conquer. You will get groups of people who believe in it a little bit too much, and they start taking their own initiative. And that's when you see the U.S. bombing these people, killing different, supposed leaders and everything. They're really killing these people, probably because they're exceeding the mandate that they're supposed to have within the parameters of what the U.S. is trying to do. Wow. And then sometimes they just kill people because they need to keep up appearances. And, it's not staged. The U.S. loves killing people. I don't know why people in the U.S. Constantly think that everything is being staged. It's fake. It's not happening. The U.S. and the West in general love killing people. This is all they've been doing for hundreds of years. It's easier to do than to stage everything. And plus, they just like doing it. And plus, they make tons of money doing it with all the weapons. And again, for people who think that Israel is somehow going off script, just and undermining the U.S. position in the region, if anyone thinks that, I don't know if anyone thinks that regarding this ongoing conflict in Syria. Yeah. Whose weapons are they doing all of this with? And whose weapons could instantly stop and never be sent to Israel again if Israel did actually go off script? So when these things are happening, a lot of it is theater. If the U.S. really wanted Israel to stop doing anything, to have all of the leverage in the world to do it. And part of this idea that Israel controls the United States is to convince people that somehow it's the other way around. The U.S. is powerless. And this absolves the U.S. of responsibility for all of these things.
No, it does not. No, it does not.
Which is the which is the whole point of having proxies in the first place, is to create distance between yourself and the dirty work that's being done.
Yeah, I think they want to balkanize Syria. I think they want to create that greater Israel. And the U.S., as you point out, is, I don't think it is a rogue actor in the least. As you point out, they can stop the weapons tomorrow. They can stop the money tomorrow. They can, hey, stop. In which case, what is Israel going to do? They have to stop. They can't afford to do these wars without the U.S. support behind it. Brian, you're fantastic. You really are. You do great work, man. And I've said this on more than one occasion. There are very few shows that I watch because I don't get the opportunity to do so. Yours is one of the most informative. And I remember before I even knew who you were, I saved one of your shows because it was so well done. I was like, wow, this is so good of an explanation. Let me save this content. I didn't even know who you were at that point. And that, I guess I'm saying that to show the work that you do great work on your channel. Brian Berletiic, he is Bangkok-based geopolitical researcher, writer, and host and creator of the new Atlas. You have my appreciation, Brian. Thank you for this.
Thank you.
Be safe, man. All right, we have come to the